Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Joel Kaplan. I am the Associate Dean for our graduate programs, and we're happy you could make it for this kind of open house to learn about our media studies program. It's our one master's level academic / scholarly program. Although we also have several professional master's programs. Many of the professional master's students take media studies type courses sometimes, and vice versa. Sometimes media studies courses, media studies students take some of the professional courses. I first want to introduce people in my office. It's Martha Coria. Martha, raise your hand, even though you can see her name. And so she's the assistant director of the office and kind of runs things and put all this together. And then we have two grad advisors, Teresa Jenkins and then Jessica Del Fuco. And so if you come, which we hope you will, then they will guide you along your path and make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. But I'm most happy to introduce to you Brad Gorham, who is a professor of communications at the Newhouse School and the director, the longtime now director of the media studies program. And he'll talk to you about the curriculum and the program and when it starts and how long it goes. But we'll stay on in case you have questions about any questions about the application process or financial aid and the like. We are going to have a separate virtual open house on December 1st, right, Martha? 2nd, December 2nd. Martha can tell you that will just be devoted to the application process and financial aid. But Brad, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joel. And I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the chat in case people want to follow up with any questions that come to you after you get off the Zoom call, which we know that's usually when they come. As Joel said, yes, my name is Brad Gorham. I'm a professor here in the communications department, have been since 2001. And I've been the director of the media studies program since 2011. And I'm glad you're joining us today so we can talk a little bit about the program. As Joel mentioned, it is a research-oriented program. Our graduates of this program basically follow two paths. One path is for the folks who fall in love with answering their curiosity and finding the answers to their research-oriented questions and want to stay in the academy and go on for a PhD. And I'm happy to talk about where our graduates have gone for their PhD. Some stay here, some have gone to lots of universities you've heard of. But that's only where some of our students go. Others take the research skills and the theoretical and conceptual tools that we give them and decide to go into the industries. There's a lot of demand for people who know how to use research tools to answer questions for the media industries, whether that's marketing, whether it's political opinion analysis and those sorts of things. And we've got graduates who are working everywhere from small tech startups to large media organizations with names like NBC and TiVo and Netflix and others. So whichever route that you are interested in, the academic route for a PhD or the professional route for a career in media research, our program has you covered. We have, in fact, two tracks. We call them the academic track and the professional track. They share a core set of required courses around communication theory and around communication research methodology, both quantitative and qualitative. We also think that students going out into either the professional world or the academic world should also understand the legal context around communications in the United States. So we do require that students take a communications law class. And we think it's really important that people understand the multicultural and diverse nature of America. And so we do require people take a media and diversity class. But outside of that, then you have the flexibility of taking courses that focus on the particular thing that you're interested in. So if you are interested in, say, the effects of popular culture on audiences, maybe you want to take a class out of sociology or psychology, or maybe take a class here at SU from the Women and Gender Studies program, or some other place on campus. If you're interested in political communication, which certainly has come to the forefront over the past few years, you might want to go take some classes up in the Maxwell School of Citizenship. So our program does allow a certain amount of flexibility in the additional classes that you can take outside of the required classes. The program is 36 credits, and generally students take that over the course of 2 years. We start in the fall semester, and so generally students take 9 or sometimes 12, but I generally recommend 9 credits in this fall of their first year, and then 9 or 12 in the spring. We do have a required class during that summer session between the first and second year. That class is called Research Project Design. And now that you've taken some required classes in your first year around methods and theory, the Research Project Design class is designed to help you hone in on either a thesis proposal for a master's thesis or a research project proposal for a more professionally oriented capstone project. And then you take some more classes in the fall semester of your second year. And depending on how many you've taken, you may only be working on your thesis or research project in the spring of your second year, or you may be taking just a single class. Either way, the capstone, if you will, of the whole program is a thesis or a thesis-like research project in which you conduct original research and add to our knowledge of the field. So I said earlier that we have students from the program who graduate and go on to PhD programs. Our recent graduates have gone to, well, some have stayed here at Syracuse University and been accepted into our own PhD program in mass communications. Others have gone to Penn State, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, University of Wisconsin-Madison, let's see, Southern Illinois at Carbondale, University of Pennsylvania. I'm trying to think of some others where they've gone. Michigan, University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few, but we have an excellent track record of our of our media studies students getting into PhD programs. In the time that I've been director, any student who has wanted to apply to PhD programs has gotten into at least one. So we've got a really good track record there, and I intend on keeping that going. But again, as I said, a fair number of our graduates also decide that maybe a PhD program isn't right for them right away. And so they've gone on into a variety of positions in the industry. So that gives you a brief overview of the program. And I think now I'm happy to answer questions that you have about the program or about the Newhouse School in general, or I'm really interested to hear maybe like what are you interested in studying? What do you want to learn more about? So if you have questions, feel free to use the little hand raising function here on Zoom, or you can just turn your camera on and raise your hand too. No questions? Really?
So I'll ask you a question, Brad. Um, what would be a typical curriculum for someone coming in the program in terms of the classes that they would take?
So generally speaking, in the fall semester of the first year, students take a required communication theory class. They take a required quantitative research methods class. And then the third class they take is kind of up to them. Some students who are interested in diversity issues, for instance, might take the media and diversity class that first semester. Other students take law that first semester sometimes, or others will take an elective class. So we have, for instance, generally a graduate class about social media, a hands-on social media class. And I know that some of our more professionally oriented students have taken that with Professor Jen Greigel, who, in addition to teaching for us, has been on the news a lot lately for her research into Facebook. And so that's a very hands-on class about social media analytics and social media strategy. Others take research-oriented courses with, for instance, Professor Makana Chak, who leads our extended reality lab. If you haven't heard the term extended reality, that's kind of an umbrella term that people are using for VR and so virtual reality, augmented reality, which there are already lots of things on your iPhone that are AR. They're all kind of referred to as XR, as extended reality. And she teaches a class on extended reality research. We also have students take classes with, for instance, Lars Wilnot, our endowed research chair, who teaches classes on political communication, or Shrivi Ramasubramanian, who teaches classes on media and diversity from a research perspective. So that first semester is pretty busy because you've just moved to a new city and you're meeting new people, and that can all be very stressful. And plus, it's your first semester in graduate school. In the second semester, then, students take a required qualitative methods class. They take a required theory class called Theories of Media Content, which is kind of a media sociology class. And then again, third or fourth class is kind of up to them. So some students will take the media and diversity class then, or the law class, or some of our specialized research courses, or they might take a course elsewhere on campus. Again, over the summer, we do the thesis design or research project design class. And then in the fall of the second year, if there's a required course like the law or media and diversity, students will take that to get that out of the way. But generally then they're concentrating on their electives. And then in the final semester, generally students are working on their research projects. They may be taking a class, typically an elective, but they're definitely working on their theses, which they can also take for 3 credits of work. So that's kind of what the curriculum looks like. I should also mention that because we are interested in research, and this is particularly important for students who want to go on for a PhD program, we encourage our students to take the papers that they write in our classes and submit them to research conferences. And we're pretty successful, I should say, or our students are pretty successful at getting their papers accepted to conferences. Those conferences typically take place in the summer, and the Media Studies program offers some money to help students who have papers accepted actually attend conferences. So for instance, I know that a number of my media studies students just submitted their papers a couple weeks ago to the ICA conference. That's the International Communication Association conference, which next May will be happening in Paris. And I'm sure a number of them will also be submitting papers for the Association in Education and Journalism and Mass Communication Conference next year in Detroit. So, and if they get their papers accepted, we do have a budget to help students actually get to those conferences to make it more affordable. So I hope that answered your question, Joel.
Excellent.
I saw that Rose briefly raised her hand too. Rose, did you have a question? Rose, I think you're muted, but if you have a question, you can go ahead and ask.
Terribly sorry. I'm also wearing a headset. I have to unmute both things.
I understand.
So this is just a slight concern of mine. I'm sure it's nothing to worry about, but after attending the in-person open house, I immediately begun the application process, excited to get it sent out. And I noticed that in multiple parts, it still mentions the GRE requirement and has a page on putting in the GRE test scores. I just checked that minutes before this meeting, and I was wondering if the GRE requirement applies for those going into the fall 2022 semester or not.
No, I do not require the GREs for the media studies program.
Okay, great. Just
For the
double
application.
checking.
And if the if the media studies page says that, well, then I'm going to have to go in and see that that gets corrected.
We will fix that.
I'll take a look at the, I might have to contact our application processing folks and have it updated so that it doesn't, so you're not forced to fill that out in the application.
Yeah, GREs are optional. Obviously, if you've taken it, you want to submit the scores, we'll accept those, but they're optional. And in fact, we just found out today, I don't even know if you know this, Brad, that the Ph.D. program is now going GRE optional as well. So we're GRE optional throughout all of our programs.
Well, and I think that makes sense because certainly, at least in my own experience here in the media studies program and in the PhD program for that matter, the GREs do not predict success in the program. All they really tell me is whether people are very good at taking standardized tests. And we know that there are a number of cultural biases and other things that affect that. So that's why I'm in favor of waiving the GRE requirement.
And to replace that, what we've done in all our master's programs is something called, we call them Cura videos, because Cura is the company that produces it. So once you finish your application and send it in, you'll be sent a link, and the link will have 3 or 4 questions that you'll answer by video. And then there'll be one question that will be a written question. And we found that to be very effective. I will run down.
Yeah. Are there other questions?
Oh, sorry. I was trying to raise my hand.
That's okay.
I know you mentioned being able to take classes in, for example, like sociology to like look at pop culture. I'm kind of interested in like the intersection of like internet pop culture and like public opinion. Is there like a specific professor that I could like reach out to? Am I even allowed to email professors beforehand?
Yes, the short answer is yes. In fact, I would encourage you to reach out to some professors ahead of time. And if you're interested in internet and public opinion, and I'm going to put his name in the chat, I would reach out to Lars Wilnot, who you can find on our website, because he, first of all, he's very interested. Most of his research is focused around journalism, but he is interested in how, and he's done a lot of research around public opinion as well. And I know that he associates with and has connections with some of the folks up in the Maxwell School who study political communication, like Emily Thorson, for instance. So that would be one person. Another person, and it's funny, I mentioned both of these folks, is Jen Greigel, who again is a professor of ours who focuses specifically on social media. And she has become, have become very focused on social media's impact on public opinion over the past few years as the revelations around how social media platforms have become pervasive spreaders of misinformation and propaganda. And that is Jen's particular purview. So those two would certainly be people you'd want to reach out to. And then the other thing I would say is we have an excellent information school here at Syracuse University called the iSchool. And we've had a number of students who take classes up at the iSchool in addition to the classes that they're taking in media studies. So you might want to poke around the iSchool's website a little bit too.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I threw in Bob Thompson, Robert Thompson, who doesn't focus that much on internet, but he actually focuses on everything having to do with popular culture. And both Jen and Bob, you probably can't go a week without seeing them on CNN or MSNBC or something, because they are the two experts on these issues that they're the usual suspects that most journalists call on to explicate what's happening in the real world.
Yep, thank you. I'll check all of them out. Thank you.
Yeah, Bob, I think at one point was the most cited or most quoted academic in the United States. But I've got to say, over the past couple of years, I think Jen is giving him a run for his money.
Well, she's got a long way to go, but yeah, she'll eventually catch him and exceed him, no question about it.
Are there other questions about the program or about life for our students in the program, or what life as a PhD student, which some of our students go on to, is like? Or I will say, I mean, I know that we have competition from my alma mater at Penn State and Wisconsin. I know that students who look at the media studies program often look up at Boston University too. But I will say we do have a very good, not just track record, but we have a really good reputation among our peer institutions for our media studies program. And of course, I'm the director of the program, so I'm going to say nice things about it. But the folks I went to graduate school with at Wisconsin, who now are professors at Ohio State and Wisconsin and Penn State and Florida and any number of other big name schools in our area. These are people I trust and know, and they know and trust me, and they would tell me if they thought that there was a problem. And typically what I hear from them is, please send more media studies students. So if you are thinking that a life in academia is something that you might be interested in, the media studies program is a good stepping stone into a PhD. And again, these skills are in demand out in the working world as well. And so the skills are valuable, whether you use them to answer questions of basic research in the academy, or you use them to answer very practical questions out in the communication industries. So I think we're a good investment.
Mm-hmm.
No other questions? Well, I am curious though, where have people gone for their undergrad, or where are you for your undergrad, and what made you want to come on this call today? Anybody want to volunteer and tell me a little bit about yourselves? Yeah, Rose?
Am I unmuted properly this time? Can you hear me?
I can hear you,
Awesome.
yep.
I am currently finishing up my last semester at the University of Maryland College Park. I am literally sitting on one of the campus buildings as we speak with the class starting at 2, but I wanted to squeeze this in. I'm majoring in media and communications after switching through many different majors that just weren't a right fit. And I've decided that this would be the right one for me, and eventually this master's program the right one for me, because I do have so many questions regarding media, especially with children's entertainment and its influence on the kids of tomorrow, the Gen Z and beyond, especially with like popular children's entertainment on YouTube, for example. And I know it sounds like such an old person thing to say, like, back in my day, things were different and better, but it really does feel that way sometimes, to the point where I want to look at it. I want to look at future generations and what they're being brought up on and figure out, is it in any way detrimental, or should I be more open-minded? Should we all be more open-minded? Because I'm not the first person who's looked at Jake Paul videos targeted towards children, or even baby videos like Coco Melon, and thought, well, this is utter trash. What's going on here?
Yeah, well, you are talking to somebody who has a 20-year-old and a 21-year-old. And so watching them grow up while I've been, teaching in this program, I have some of those same questions. At the same time, I also know, what the research says around some of this. But yeah, I mean, we certainly are in a new era compared to certainly when I was much younger, but even compared to when my kids were very young. And I think getting a better handle on what the effects are and what they aren't, and what interventions make sense and which ones don't. I think those are important questions to ask. So yeah, you could come and ask those questions here, and we'll help you work towards some answers. Hi, is it Reese, or how do you pronounce Reese?
Yeah. I'm 21. I'm currently 21. And I also kind of feel like what kids are watching now is kind of detrimental. I don't know if that makes me like sort of like a boomer, but I agree. And just kind of going off that point, I'm kind of really interested in like internet subcultures. It's funny that you mentioned Professor Greigel, because my research kind of sort of aligns with theirs a bit. I did my paper for last term about QAnon, and how it spread on 4chan and what used to be 8chan, and all this stuff. So I guess to answer your question as to why I'm here, as someone who grew up like in the first like digital age, like I very much was on Tumblr and Instagram and Twitter from a pretty early age. And I think that really has like impacted how society works, and like especially like younger generations. So yeah, to answer your question, I agree with what you and Rose put out, that whatever the internet is giving kids is like kind of weird, and we should be studying that. But I am a political science major, currently a senior at Union College in Schenectady, and I'm doing my thesis on internet memes and politics. So yeah.
Oh, great. Yeah. Actually, Jen Greigel is teaching a class on memes in the spring semester here.
It's awesome. Yeah, then I definitely have to reach out to them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. The very first master's thesis that I advised as a professor here at Syracuse was about Friendster, which I don't even know if you are old enough to remember Friendster, but it was a precursor to MySpace. That's how long ago it was. But it was an early social network. And
yeah, I'm even too young for MySpace.
Oh. So we've been studying these things for a while here, was really my point in bringing that up. Great. Well, thank you, Reese. Anybody else want to volunteer? Yeah. Hi, is it Igor?
Oh, hi. Yeah, it's Igor. I can't open my camera right now. I'm sorry for that.
Oh, that's okay.
But so I'll do it by audio. So, hi, I'm Igor. I'm from Brazil. I just finished my undergraduate in journalism here this year at University of São Paulo, which is the biggest university in the country, probably the biggest university in South America. And I'm looking out for masters in communications and media studies because I want two things. I want to expand my research that I did in my final thesis in the undergraduate, which is about, it was an analysis of the coverage of the anti-racist protests that happened last year in US and in Brazil too. So in my thesis, I analyzed how the main TV channel here in Brazil covered the both protests in US and Brazil, what was different in these two covers. So I wanted, in a master, I want to expand it and go deep in that analysis. But I also want to expand my career because I don't want to stay so focused on journalism. I want to open more possibilities in the media industry. So this this is why I'm looking for a master now. And I got very interested in at Syracuse and the program and all the courses.
I great. I would say that one of the advantages that coming to Newhouse has compared to some similar kinds of media studies programs at other universities is that Newhouse is such a well-known and well-connected, professionally oriented school. And so when you say, you're interested in journalism, we have terrific journalists who teach for us here. And we always have fascinating people coming through the building, it seems, every week, who might be here just for a week or two as a journalist in residence or coming to give a talk. And of course, we have alumni connections. And so, there are lots of possibilities there to talk with folks who are out there doing the journalism right now, and even work on research around what some of those folks are doing or what some of our students in journalism are doing. So there are lots of possibilities here. And we have a number of international students come here too, Igor. And actually, we currently have one of our PhD students is Brazilian. And so you wouldn't even be the only Brazilian here. So I hope you'll give us give us some consideration here.
Oh, definitely I will.
Great. Anybody else on the call want to speak up a little bit and just tell me what you're interested in? Yeah, Kaylee.
Hi, I'm zooming in from Chicago. I go to Loyola University of Chicago. I'm in my final semester right now. And I'm interested in this program partially for the interdisciplinary aspect because I double major in political science and communications, and I have a lot of interest in political communication and kind of the overlap between media and politics and sociology and some other areas. Mm-hmm. But the area that I'm specifically interested in is platform governance, like how design of platforms impacts user behaviors, how that has ramifications in society and culture and politics and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, boy, we're getting lots of students lined up to talk with Jen Greigel, I think, because one of the things that they have been working on is the very question about If platforms won't govern themselves, what can the rest of us do to encourage socially responsible behavior by platforms? But in addition to Jen Greigel, I would point out Nina Brown, who teaches communications law for us, but the research that she is doing is specifically around what kinds of legally acceptable strategies are out there for encouraging socially responsible behavior by platforms, and what are some of the legal issues around a variety of new technologies. She was just, all of our new media studies and PhD students take a pro seminar in the fall, in which they hear from faculty in the Newhouse School who come to talk about their research, basically. And it's an opportunity to hear about the kinds of research they're doing, to see if maybe this is somebody I want to work with. And so Nina was presenting to our students just a couple weeks ago about a really novel proposition, I suppose is the best word, that she's working on around basically around platforms like Facebook and Twitter and others, that is compatible with Section 230 of the Telecommunications Decency Act, that is compatible clearly with the First Amendment, but would have the kinds of teeth that would really push platforms to operate in a more socially responsible way. And it was fascinating. And she's been cited by federal courts. Her work has some of her legal analyses, and she has co-authored a couple papers with Jen Greigel, and they're just doing some really fascinating and I think important stuff that is getting noticed. And so, those are people you could come and work with if you were interested. So.